Hello and welcome. It's Friday. You've made it through another week, and you're here with your friends on Beyond the Darkness, the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave Schrader. A little bit later on in the show, a brand new episode of Theater of the Mind. But right now, horror finds a home on today's Beyond the Darkness. Our guest is June Matthews, and in a period of just 6 weeks, the Matthews family moved, began new jobs, they're living in a new state, and her husband is off on his first business trip. And things start to go awry. She's here with us to share her story, her insights, and probably one of the most unique perspectives on the paranormal I've ever had brought to my attention. June Matthews, our guest. June, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, sir. Very happy to be here.
It's great to chat with you. And the book is called The Reliving, and we'll get into that in a little bit as to why that is. Now, you were basically a non-believer in the paranormal through your life. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I never believed any of it was real. I thought these were campfire stories for the Girl Scouts, and I never believed anything about the paranormal.
And, you know, when you'd hear this stuff, you thought it was just straight for shock and entertainment value. Did you grow up knowing people that believed in it, people in your own family that had strange paranormal experiences, or were you really just kind of removed from that whole aspect?
My family was more, they were very, very religious and very centered around anything negative was demonic. They didn't believe in ghosts or the paranormal. They did believe in possession and demons, and it was real scary.
So in their take, there was no Casper the Friendly Ghost.
No.
There was malevolent spirits or malevolent energies trying to convince you it was a loved one or a ghost, right?
Exactly,
all right.
Yes. And anything that had to do with the paranormal was evil and not to ever be approached. I didn't ever take on those beliefs, but I just didn't believe. I didn't believe in any of it. I didn't believe theirs, and I didn't believe in the paranormal.
Well, June, now that you look back through the eyes of an experiencer, do you see reflections of things that now you look back and you go, you know, that might have been paranormal. That might have been something like this that I was always experiencing.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. A lot of things in my childhood and in my teenage years that I just ignored or just blew off. I thought they were coincidence.
What type of things would happen now that you can look back at it with a different set of eyes? What do you see now that was most likely paranormal?
I had a very traumatic childhood and teenage years, and I was kind of unexplainably saved a bunch of different times.
Unexplainably saved. Okay. Now, when you say that you didn't have a pleasant time, were you being abused? Okay.
Yes.
And was this multi-layered? Was it physical, mental, verbal? What type of abuse were you going through at the time?
Well, it's in the book. It's as a child, I was abused by my parents and sent off to different parents. And my life at home was very traumatic, and I ran away from home. And I was 12, and I got convinced to get in a car with this man, and I was driven to New Mexico, and I was kept there until I was 17.
Well, so you didn't...
And he was very, very abusive.
You didn't know this man?
No.
All right, so
I was 12, and he was, like, telling me how pretty I was and flirting with me, and he asked me to get closer to the car, and then he pulled me into the car.
And that was it. You were abducted for 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Towards the last 2 years, I had something that people refer to as, oh my God, and I can't remember what it's called. When you become emotionally attached to your captor.
Oh, sure, kind of that Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm
right,
syndrome.
okay.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. So I could say that I was sort of there voluntarily, but not really. I'm sorry.
Right, you started to associate with this person, even though it's something to the rest of the world. You'd be thinking, no, get the hell out of there. Why would you stay? You would become it had become your normal. The abnormal was your normal.
Exactly, and the idea of leaving just I stopped having those plans. I stopped trying to get away, and I stopped thinking about leaving. And I decided, I don't know, something happens to you when you're held against your will like that. And I decided I loved him. And, now I know I didn't, but that's part of Stockholm syndrome.
And during all of this time, 5 years, you're gone. Is your family searching for you? Do they think you're dead? What's going on with the people, that you were with?
They weren't looking for me.
Nobody was looking for you?
My family was pretty abusive themselves, and no one was looking for me.
So even the family that you went to live with, the people you did go, they didn't care either.
They didn't look for me. I'm sure they would say now that they care, but we don't talk to each other.
Oh, June.
But no, I know for a fact no one was looking.
Okay. All right. So as you're going through this issue, you said that you felt that there were a few instances where something was watching out for you and perhaps saved you. Can you give us an instance or two of what you're referring to?
When I was, when I had first turned 12, before I had run away, I had a really traumatic episode with my father, and the next morning, for my birthday that year, he gave me a .22 handgun, and it wasn't, of course, registered to me or anything, and it was, registered to him, but the next morning I shot myself, and I survived, and I should have been crippled, and I wasn't.
Now, you shot yourself. Was this an accidental shooting, or were you attempting to end your life?
I don't think I was attempting to end my life. I think I would have shot myself in the head. I shot myself in the stomach, and I figured that surgeons could fix me. I really just wanted out of that house. And, this was back in the 70s when the police would come and see me bleeding and wouldn't do anything. This wasn't the same. We didn't have the same kind of laws then. So nobody.
So this was a cry for help. This shooting yourself was really you weren't looking to commit yourself or kill yourself. You were looking to just get.
I was absolutely not looking to kill myself. My father had medical encyclopedias, and I looked it up so that I could try to figure out if I could shoot my appendix, because I knew I didn't need that.
Good grief.
And so, definitely, I was not trying to kill myself. I just wanted help. I wanted out of there, and no one would hear me. So,
and when you shot yourself, the bullet obviously hits you, goes through. What happens from there? How do you feel that was kind of a saving grace? What about that saved your life?
the way that the doctors described the bullet just brushing against my spine, and I lost some feeling in my left leg, but there was a lot of question about whether or not my left leg was going to function, and it functioned fine. I just don't have like surface feeling. Feels like Novocaines in my leg. And then after the first surgery, I was getting better, and then I got really sick because the bullet, I don't know, the outside of the bullet or whatever had gone through. The bullet went through me, but it infected me. And so I had some kind of infection and got really sick. And I made it through that too. And, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I was pretty young, but I was told over and over by the doctors how miraculous this whole thing was and how amazing it was that I'd made it through this without being crippled or permanently injured.
So there was, that is definitely some kind of divine intervention that pulled you through, or amazing luck. Either way, pretty astounding.
Yeah, just the way the bullet went through me, everything was fixable. And I may have been looking in a medical encyclopedia, but I wasn't that smart. So it wasn't like I knew exactly what I was doing. And, I have some repercussions from it now. But as you get older, everybody has repercussions from things that have happened to them when they were young. But, yeah, it went right through me, and nothing vital, nothing that couldn't pretty easily be fixed was injured.
What was another example of a time you look back at now and think, there was something here, there was something watching out for me?
Oh, my gosh. There's a lot. Just me, I guess the main one is getting out of New Mexico and being able to come back. Well, I was in California at the time. But when I, it's like nothing would get me.
Right. So you were with this guy for quite a while, 5 years. And what was the breakaway from? How did you finally?
He went to jail for kidnapping and extortion of another woman, or actually a child. And some other guy showed up at the house that we were at and told me that he was in jail and what he was there for, and that I should pack a bag, and he was going to come back and get me. And I left.
And that was it. Just got out of there.
That's what I needed to be able to leave him. Part of me loved him, and then part of me, I really kind of started to believe that he could read my mind, and it's all part of this trauma of being held against your will. And I don't know that I would have ever had the courage to leave if he hadn't been in jail. And then it was easy.
You made that break.
There was no struggle anymore, and I went back to California.
All right, now you make this break. You go back to California. Now you're 17 years old. What's for you in California? Your family was abusive, and nobody really searched for you. There was no mention of, pardon me, this missing girl. Where were you off to?
I went to, I can't say who they are, but I went to a family that claimed me sort of as their own, but I wasn't related to them. And I stayed with them for until I was 19, and then I got my own apartment and a job, and left. So, and then in the meantime, I also tried to go back to school.
So you were trying to set your life back on the straight and narrow. When you were with this man, were you basically living like a husband and wife? Were you allowed to leave the house? What was that like?
Not for the first 3 years, but the last parts of it, yes, I could leave the house. So in the book I describe, this is another time where I believe, I don't know, God or angels, somebody intervened. So I describe this in the book because my book is basically, I'm kind of correlating post-traumatic stress and the paranormal. And during a time where I was trying to get away from him, I ran down the street, and this was about a year before I actually left. I ran down the street, and I wanted to get a ride. I had met a girl that said she would help me get back home, and I knew where she lived, and I had to do this really fast. And this truck pulled over, and I asked him if he'd give me a ride, and he said yes. And it was an older truck with one seat in the front, you know, not like bucket seats, just one long seat. And I got in the truck, and then he took off, and then real quickly, about a block away, pulled over, and another man opened the door and kind of pushed me aside, got into the car, and now I'm in the middle. And they drove me out to the desert, and I don't really have any memory of, no, I don't have any memory of much other than this one man, the driver, saying, "Why the fuck do they always cry?" And
oh my God! So they had done this before. This was,
yeah. And I thought for sure they were going to kill me. And the next thing I remember, I don't remember anything. I remember that man's words, and it's all a blank until I'm walking down this road, and it's all dark, and the lights of Albuquerque are really close, and I wasn't really taken that far. Back then, you could just leave Albuquerque and go into the desert, and it'd be just dark. So we hadn't really been driving very long, and I went back to the house, and all I kept thinking was, Michael, the man who took me, was better than this. And so I went back home to where that was my home then. And I was covered up in blood and scratches and cuts, but I don't know how. I couldn't tell you how I got away.
That's
I don't know even what they did to me, other than they must have beat me up and cut me, but I'm sure they raped me, but I don't know anything else.
Did you at this part in your life, you've gone through some amazing trauma that would have killed or broken most others. Did you remember asking, why me? Why is this happening to me? And do you remember what kept you from ending your life? A lot of people, this would have been enough to shatter them and send them spiraling.
I made a few attempts to end my life. But really it wasn't because of what had happened. It was because I couldn't live life on life's terms. I couldn't make things work. I couldn't work at a job. I didn't know anything about post-traumatic stress, and I didn't know why sometimes some things freaked me out, or why I was afraid to leave the house sometimes. And because of these things, I'd lose jobs, and, the frustration of not being able to just deal with life like other people was what made me attempt suicide. which thank goodness I was unsuccessful. But.
Right. And that's, what a powerful statement in that, right? I mean, then as a survivor of all of these maladies and survivor even of suicide attempts of taking your own life, you've got to be left with the thoughts of what, then why? Why am I here? What is the purpose of all of this? Did that drive you through your life then to try to understand that better?
No, I have to be honest. I'd love to have some great answer for this. But honestly, my family made so little out of what had happened to me that I just thought it was, they had a lot of, it's not happening now, move on kind of way of talking to me. And so nothing seemed like that big of a deal. And I kind of know now that, there's something called dissociation where you just kind of take all this crazy stuff that's happening and, swallow hard and it kind of goes away. And so I don't know. I just thought I was a failure and that and you could never use anything that happened to you as an excuse. And I never wanted to use it as an excuse, but at that time I didn't understand that there were, actual medical reasons why I wasn't functioning like normal people.
All right, now you've escaped all of that part of your life. Did more trauma happen between that and when you finally met your husband and began a life?
I became a very serious drug addict. And I stopped doing drugs, like street drugs, and because I got pregnant, and I ended up getting addicted to prescription pain pills. And, I have a lot of scars and a lot of, actually they weren't really issues at the time. I was just saying they were to get pain pills. But I had one doctor who was just willing to give me anything I wanted. So towards the end, I was taking 40 extra strength Vicodin a day.
Oh my! How the hell did you survive that? 40?
I don't know. See, it's in divine intervention. I have no idea. I can even top that. I had married this guitar player, and he was court ordered to drug treatment, and I was picking up his pills too, and not telling the doctor that he was in jail and being sent to a treatment center. And so right before I went, I guess this is a real common thing for drug addicts to do. When you think you're going to quit, you just take a whole bunch of pills. So I know that there were specifically, absolutely for certain, there was 3 days where I had taken both prescriptions in one day. And if God wasn't keeping me alive, I don't know who was. But I had built up this tolerance where I had been taking so many pills for so many years. I mean, that's part of what kept me alive, but I really think I should have OD'd, and I didn't.
When you were going through this phase in your life, there are some people that have used narcotics in order to access that aspect of the paranormal. Do you have conscious memory now of seeing or hearing things when you were going through there that went beyond just the drug hallucinations, that were more profound, more powerful than just drug-induced haze?
No, I never had drug hallucinations from pain pills. No, I took drugs to not feel anything, to just be completely numb. And that's what I wanted, was to just feel nothing. Everything's okay. And I went to the drug and alcohol treatment center because they called me and said I should be supportive of my ex-husband. And I went there, and they told me he was a huge asshole, and that they told me he had been given this opportunity to be at this treatment center, but that they were going to throw him out. And I told them, or I said to him, "You're such a jerk. I would do anything to be here." And so the owner of the treatment center said, this is the only way. He said, that's why he's here. He's the only way God could get you here. And so we'll treat you. So they treated me for free.
So there was some.
So I got $30,000.
I was going to say, so there was some good that was coming out of these different aspects of your life. Another divine intervention, some angelic form helped you with this. They reached out and made a difference. All right. But during all of this time, again, were you aware of anything strange or supernatural? Did you get senses of evil from people? I mean, you were walking into one dark space after another.
The only thing that comes to mind is that if, let's say, I'm in the grocery store and somebody walks behind me, sometimes I'll feel this kind of safe feeling, and then sometimes I get, I don't know what you call it, completely creeped out by somebody. And my sponsor had said she just truly believes that I'm able to sense the psychopath, the real crazy person, in ways that some other people can't. But, and then of course, I get the hell out of there if I feel that from somebody. But I can't say that I ever really had any paranormal experiences other than I just felt it was amazing that I was alive. It was amazing that they let me into the treatment center, and it was amazing that they were saying that they were never supposed to treat my ex-husband. This was all God's plan to get me to go there and to get me in there. But I mean, honestly, other than that, I don't recall having. I still never believed in the paranormal.
Right. I mean, you had enough real world angst and darkness to deal with that the paranormal would have seemed like a picnic at that point, I would guess.
Yeah. If something like that would have happened, I probably wouldn't have noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have noticed. It wasn't until I moved here that I really paid attention. And I was kind of forced to pay attention here. The noises that are in my house sound like somebody's breaking in. So the fear of actually somebody breaking into my house is way more powerful to me than a ghost or whatever you would call a ghost. That's frightening. Like, human beings scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, we say
the
we say that a lot. The ghosts and the dead don't frighten me. It's the living. They're the terrifying one. In The Reliving, author June Matthews explores the link between paranormal events and a type of PTSD known as complex post-traumatic stress disorder, a condition that replays past trauma over and over again, and what some doctors refer to as a reliving. When we come back, we're going to go to 2010, while career changes led her and her husband to pack up their lives in California and move into their new dream house in rural town in eastern Washington. Alone in that new house while he traveled for work, unexplained events began to happen. We'll discuss that and more, but right now, it's time to dip into the archives for the next edition of Theater of the Mind. This week From the Darchives, we look into the black-eyed hybrid conundrum, a real-life encounter shared by Dre Fordham on Theater of the Mind. My mom and I had been chatting about the topic of ghosts. During our chat, I brought up the phenomenon of black-eyed kids. She'd not heard of them, so I gave her the details that we'd been learning about as a paranormal community. She said that this BEK thing sounded a lot like a story my dad, Chuck, had told her. My dad died when I was only 19. He was known to be a strange guy with strange events happening to him. I enjoyed the stories, and he's mostly the reason I grew up with as much of an open mind as I have. My dad continues to be the most confusing human I'd ever met, but I never doubted the things that he told me. My mom said that he shared a story with her that happened to him when he was 14 in the year 1941. He said that day he was in town and saw 3 boys picking on a dog and being mean to it. Now, my dad loved animals more than humans and risked our lives in the car many times to avoid hitting even a raccoon. So he went up against the boys and did a pretty good job for himself and the dog as he brawled with the boys. And the dog went home with him. Later that evening, he was home alone and he heard the doorknob on the front door turning. Back then, doors were not locked in homes like they are today. He started for the front, thinking it was his parents returning. But as he got in view of the door, he saw the hand of a kid, not an adult. As the door was open for only a few inches, he assumed it was the boys from earlier that day, seeking revenge for messing with them. He marched to the door, flinging it open, again to confront the boys. But as he opened it, he saw that these were 3 different boys. They were looking behind them and down the path, even the one that had been opening the door. He said he didn't recognize him at all. The closest boy bent down to tie his shoe and at that same time asked if they could come inside. At this age, my dad lived in Daniel Boone's home in Pennsylvania. It's now a museum called Daniel Boone's Homestead, but at the time the property needed work, and my dad and his parents lived on site as caretakers while the location was being restored. The home comes with lots of land, and it was strange for wandering others to just come down this long driveway. So my dad asked them why they were here. The boy tied his other shoe and said that they got turned around and were new to the location and did not know which way was back to town. As the closest boy stood up, he looked at my dad, and he saw that their eyes were black, all black. My dad told my mom that it was at this moment he knew that these things were aliens. My dad had a few encounters before this that he considered extraterrestrial, and a few he thought that were possible abductions. So this, I imagine, is what made him come to the conclusion that these were, in fact, aliens. He said he told them they could not come in, but he felt dizzy, not very strong. He said the boys stood there, looking at him. As he reached to close the door, he said the door seemed very heavy and much larger than it really was. Then, the first boy stepped over the threshold of the door frame, and my dad became very faint. He said he backed away as the other 2 boys also entered the house. He also said that at that moment the first boy stepped into the house, it felt like gravity was leaving the whole home. He said he was not sure how he knew it was the whole home losing gravity, but he just knew it. He said he kept looking at the boys, but started falling very slowly. He figured the slow motion descent was because of the lack of gravity. During his fall, the boys came to his side and one at his feet, but they seemed like they were level with him, as if he were on a table. But he could tell he was on the floor of his own home. As he started to panic, he lost consciousness. During his blackout, he found himself driving a car in Hong Kong. He knew it was himself, but an older version of himself. He was still American, but visiting Hong Kong. He was stopped in traffic because everyone was looking to the sky. He also looked out his front window and saw a large fireball of fire flying across the horizon, so low that he thought it was going to take out some of the buildings. But the fireball continued without causing any damage and left everyone shocked at what they had seen. My dad said when he opened his eyes, he was on his couch, and he could hear the boys leaving and shutting the door behind them. He said during this vision, He never once thought about the boys that had entered his house. As a related event, one of the stories my dad told me was about a time in his early 20s, and he was in New York City in traffic when he saw, along with many others, a huge fireball streaking low across the sky. Evidently, later, he learned that many others in Hong Kong had seen the same thing during that time. What my dad was obsessed with was the direction the fireball was flying. It would have had to turn to make it to Hong Kong. He said meteors don't turn. I have no idea how he knew others in Hong Kong saw this, and I've not done research on it to prove it. But I have no idea why my dad never included the tie-in to the Black-Eyed Kids. My mom said that he never mentioned that the kids were dressed odd or old-time. Maybe they were dressed as we hear about them now, in 1940s attire. So then it wouldn't have been so odd. If I had to trust what my dad said and speculate, I think this could be what happened. They did abduct him, and he was on the ship, but they made it look like his home. This could be the answer to why gravity felt as though it were leaving, and maybe anyone who's come in contact with the Black-Eyed Kids just think they were able to resist, because that's what they want you to remember. And maybe my dad was just able to hold on to a little bit of the truth.
Beyond the darkness.
Welcome back to the show. Remember, if you're interested in getting a copy of the book from our author or from any of the authors you hear, just visit darknessradio.com and click on our Killer Deals link. We put up links to every one of the books and all of the different DVDs and documentaries. Plus, there's some great ghost hunting swag, Bigfoot hunting swag, T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, cool stuff. Go check it out. If you love the paranormal, you're going to love our Amazon shop that we've handpicked just for you, our listeners. And when you go in through that link, if you end up buying something else that you find online and use our link, a small portion for every sale goes to help support this show. So make sure you continue to support your pals. You're going to buy through Amazon anyway. Why not do it and know that you're helping out your buddies here at Beyond the Darkness? And if you want to get off the couch, you want to throw yourself into the game and be a part of the paranormal world, stop listening to everybody else's stories and get into it and have your own story. Then join me this September 2018 as I return to Romania on our Dracula Stakeout event. We're already half sold out on this, and we'd love for you to join us. We will be hitting some amazing locations like the haunted forest of Baisu. We'll also be visiting the birthplace of Vlad the Impaler, his final resting place, and many of the castles that held him, imprisoned him, and he lived in throughout his lifetime. You'll get a chance to visit haunted locations, and we will be investigating 2 castles as part of this trip. So if you're interested, check out darknessevents.com, and click on the Dracula banner, and you will be able to join us. Plus, you can go to darknessevents.com and find all the other cool events I will be a part of throughout the rest of the year. Right now, we are talking about just an unbelievably impactful story. The book is called The Reliving, a True Story. June Matthews is the author, the experiencer, and she's here as our guest this evening, talking us through her very powerful story. Now let's zoom to 2010. As I mentioned, there were career changes that led you and your husband to kind of pack up your life in California and move into this dream house. Tell me, how did you find this house?
The company that hired my husband flew us out to Spokane, Washington, and we were put up in a hotel and spent 5 days looking for the house. And we had a realtor who took us around. We came from California, and we already had a house in California. But in California, if you're not a billionaire, you can't have much land. And here, we found that we could have acres and acres of land in the rural areas just outside of Spokane. So we looked and looked. We probably looked at, I don't even know how many. Each day she would show up every morning and pick us up at the hotel. And we look at house after house. And some of them were really horrible. I mean, some of them were what I would think would be haunted. And then we only saw this house for about 40 minutes, and we had to do a really quick walkthrough because it took her so long to find the house that we were going to be late for another appointment. So we had about 40 minutes to look at everything and check out the grounds. And interestingly enough, my husband and I both got a real creepy feeling when we went downstairs, and we decided that, new paint and new floors will make it not seem creepy. And
well, talk me through the creepy sense. I mean, we've all walked into places that look freaky. Pardon me, and we get that kind of overwhelming sense and chill. But I never look at it and think, this would be all right, though, with a nice splash of paint. You kind of either get that creep feeling or you don't. Did you think you were just pushing past it because it was like, we're just being silly? Was it one of those kind of things?
Yes, exactly. And, yeah, it was exactly that. I decorate our houses thoroughly, and it just needed, it had an old shag carpet, and I thought, that probably reminds us both of our childhood, and that's horrible, so we'll pull that out and put in new floors, and it needed paint, and there was a lot of weird things about the downstairs. The house is reversed. Most houses, when you go into, we have two front doors. There's an upstairs front door and a downstairs front door. And most homes, the kitchen and dining room and everything is downstairs. But in ours, everything's reversed. So when you come through the upstairs front door, that's where our main living room, dining room, kitchen, master bedroom, laundry room, everything's up on the top floor. And then the bedrooms, the office, and everything, and the family room is downstairs. And anyway, we both did get a creepy feeling, but we brushed it off. Went back to California, and the thing that sold me on this house was that it was very strange. Everything that I wanted to change in our current house in California, the staircase banister, the countertops in the kitchen, I wanted granite. This house had granite. This house even had the granite that I wanted to replace in our current house. This house had the staircase I wanted. I wanted crown molding in our bedroom, and this house had it. So it was like every single thing I was going to change, including adding French doors and a deck to the master bedroom, and we had it here. It was actually really amazing that the only thing the house really needed was new flooring and paint.
All right, so you've talked yourself into the place, you get going. How soon into living there do things start to go from this is our new home to we're not alone here, there's something else with us?
Well, the actual paranormal experience, I don't know if this was a paranormal experience or not, but when we first saw this house, it was bright and cheerful and had a lot of sun, and everything was clean. And 31 days later, when we opened the door, it was filthy. There was this like brown sticky finish on every single faucet, on the walls, on all the light switches. I have no idea what it was. The smell in here was just ungodly. It was, I don't know what it was. We thought maybe it had something to do with drugs. There were handprints everywhere you looked. There was mud smeared on the refrigerator, mud in the refrigerator. This place was a total disaster.
Did you contact the people you were buying it from and say, hey, what's going on here?
No, we never spoke to the previous owners, and our real estate agent was only going to be able to communicate with their real estate agent. And so, no, we never... We'd asked questions and said we wanted, some answers to, like, hey, how does the oven work? Where's the paper and the manual? But we weren't allowed to contact them, and we didn't know anything about them. So only what we were told was that they moved to Oregon, and what we did find out was they just moved to Spokane. So... but I can't say their name or anything like that.
Right.
But they,
understandable. All right.
Specifically, didn't seem to want to talk to us.
Okay. Yeah, that is that's bizarre. So but you end up following through with this purchase anyway.
Right. And then we walk in and see that the place is a smelly disaster area.
Right.
And my husband and I just spent 3 or 4 days just trying to clean so that you could, our furniture wasn't here yet, but I mean, it was so dirty you couldn't use the bathrooms. So my husband spent like 2 days trying to clean the downstairs bathtub. It was full of mud and so gross, somebody's hair. And we looked at it the day we were here, and it was completely clean. So, and no one was supposed to live here. The house was just staged, and they were supposed to be in Oregon. So I don't know. Maybe somebody had parties in here. I don't know what happened, but so I don't know if that's considered paranormal or not. As I don't really know what the cause of all that was. But we got it cleaned up, and then my husband had to go off on his first trip. And my first paranormal experience here happened 5 minutes after he left.
All right. What was that first experience?
We had brought a few boxes with us. The movers were going to take like a week and a half to get all of our stuff here. And so we brought dishes, and I wanted, glasses we got as a wedding gift, and we'd packed up TVs and some things like that. And so I went into the kitchen and started pulling out the few plates that we'd brought and the glasses. And I had already kissed my husband goodbye and watched him leave. And then I heard the front door open. I heard his keys. I had soap on my hands, and I was washing it off. And I made some joke to him that can't stay away from me or something. I could hear him behind me walking up to me. I could hear his keys moving in his hand, but I had my back to him. And I turned around real fast with my arms out like I was going to give him a hug, and I said, you can't stay away from me or something. And I felt like somebody knocked the wind out of me because there was nobody there. And I couldn't believe there was nobody there. I mean, I heard him. I heard him walking. I heard him open the door. I heard his keys. I heard him walk up behind me. And he should have been a couple feet from me, and I turned around, and I'm alone. And I never had that experience before. And I didn't know what to make of it. But that was the first day, and then I had other things that happened that same day.
Now, did that really frighten you, or was it just was it more shocking?
Well, the idea of it being something paranormal didn't even occur to me. What scared me was here I am in a state I'd never been in. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I've just heard a man enter my house, and so he's here somewhere. That's what I was thinking. There is somebody in here. It's not my husband, and I don't see him. And I start looking all over the place, like maybe he popped into the dining room or something. And then I just kind of brushed it off. I thought, well, okay, it's maybe sound in this house is really weird. I don't know. I didn't know what to make of it, but the paranormal still really didn't occur to me. So,
but you weren't. Did you call the police? I mean, you thought that you thought somebody was in your house.
Yeah, but my front door was really close, and it was still locked. And I did look around anyway. Mm-hmm. But no, I didn't call the police because I figured it's, I had the water running, and I thought, I even went back to the dishes and reran the water to see if it would sound like keys. And maybe as the water's, trickling down on the dishes, maybe
sure, right.
It just sounded like keys. And, maybe it's something else. And we have wild animals here, and maybe it's a deer. Raccoons are on the roof. I don't know what it is, but it just didn't occur to me that there could be. I didn't believe in the paranormal, so that wasn't even an issue. I had other experiences that day where I could feel wind blowing on me, but none of the windows were open. There was no air on. There was no heater on. And I didn't know what to make of that either. I thought maybe we needed sealant for the windows. And maybe,
so you were just going with any kind of logical sense, which is intelligent, right? Because apparently, again, it wasn't part of your world. It wasn't like you believed in the paranormal or were quick to jump to those decisions.
Right. Exactly. It just wasn't something that would occur to me. And, numerous things happened over the course of just waiting for the movers to get here. And I called my daughter in California, and that's the first thing she said is, "Mom, your house is haunted." And I said, no, come on, that's silly. That's not real. It's something else, but it was scary. And at night, it would become really scary because some of the sounds sounded like someone was kicking down a front door. And I thought someone would be breaking in, and I'm here by myself. And at the time, we also had 2 little min pin chihuahuas and 2 cats. And the dogs would just bark insanely at nothing. There'd be nothing there, and they'd wake me up in the middle of the night, jumping on me, freaking out about something, but there's nothing. And that's right when I started deciding that maybe it's possible. And then it kind of went back and forth for a long time because, again, I just thought this is what, these are campfire stories and they're not real. And I didn't want to get sucked into something and be silly.
But when did you start to realize that this wasn't just your weird musings and that there wasn't somebody else, there was no other human hiding in the walls of your home? And how long did it take you to come to that conclusion, I guess?
I started to believe that it was paranormal. We have a fan that, a workman had come to do some work in the house, and he was in the attic, and while he was in there, I said, well, while you're in there, how come we can't make this fan work? And so he said, well, it's never been connected. It looks like the guy installed it in a unfortunate place. It's right above our staircase. And where the attic is, it shrinks to almost nothing there. And because it's such a tight fit, no one's ever hooked it up. So he said it's not attached. That's why, the remote doesn't work and you can't make it work. It's not attached to electricity. And I got up one morning, went out into the living room to start the coffee, and the fan was moving. And I came and got my husband. It was like 4:30 in the morning or something, and I said, "Get the hell out of bed right now." And I had been telling him about some of the stuff, and he kept brushing it off. He kept saying, he even got really defensive a few times and got angry, which wasn't like him, and said, this is haunted, this house isn't haunted. And, but I said, maybe it's possible. And then this one morning when I saw the fan, I said, get in here and see, you got to see this. And then he just walked by it, very nonchalant, and said, oh, yeah, okay, good, the fan's working. And I'm like, it's not connected.
It's not connected, honey. Yeah.
And then he just said, well, I guess it must be. And, that was kind of frustrating. And then it stopped moving and wasn't, that wasn't an issue. And then something else would happen. And eventually so many things happened, there was nothing left to do but believe. As a matter of fact, the more I decided this wasn't paranormal, the more activity there was.
So it wanted your attention. It was like, oh, no, you're not going to deny me this.
Right. Absolutely. It totally, they totally want to be known. So, right around that time, I started, was my daughter's idea first to try to do a EVP recording. And the very first time we got something, I was so shook up by this recording that I accidentally pressed delete and I erased it. But we continued doing that, and whenever something would happen, I would try to videotape it, and so I could show my husband, because so much of it happened when he wasn't here. He was only here Saturday and Sunday, so of course it always happened when he wasn't here. And when he was here, he didn't think it was spectacular at all at the time. But he also later told me that he was doing that because he didn't want to be a jerk and say, yeah, I think the house is haunted. Goodbye. I'll see you next weekend. He didn't want to scare me.
So he was doing his best to try to protect you by making you feel like you were an idiot. I get it.
Well, he has since apologized.
Right. I'm sure.
He's apologized very much, but that's a weird position for him to be in. What do you say?
Right.
Because he has to leave me here, and what do you say?
How did it continue to build?
Almost for a long time, I got to say, almost every day, something else would happen, and it would always be something different. We had a candle that would flash only when my husband was coming home. That would happen on Friday nights. And he would call me, and the candle would start flashing. And then it would continue to flash until he got home, which just drove me crazy, because then once he's home, it's not doing it. And it was a little battery-operated electric candle that I have in a wall sconce. It was always the same candle. And so I videotaped it and showed it to him. And during a vacation, he ended up seeing the candle. And then he switched sides. He pulled the sconce off the wall, put it in a different place. And there was one on each side of a picture, and he switched them. And the same side still started blinking, even though it was a different candle. And different wall sconce and everything. And so that was interesting. And then he started seeing more things that literally cannot happen. There was a table that we had in our bedroom that was lifted up, and we have molding in we have wainscoting and then a molding on top. It's only like a half an inch wide from the wall. And the table was literally hanging by this little tiny piece of molding. And on top of it is an angel statue. And everything was still on the table. And then later, a few nights after that, that whole table crashed in the middle of the night for no reason that we can explain. Every day when something would happen, though, it's almost as if what's in the house didn't want to be rude because nothing ever happened at the same time. So if the candle's flashing, the fan wasn't moving. But once the candle's done flashing, then the fan could move. And then when the fan is done, the lights in the living room would flash off and on. And the house is...
And you were sure this wasn't just the electronics cycling and something maybe amiss in your wiring?
We had the electricity checked. We've had plumbers come out here. We've had spent a lot of money on electricians. There's nothing wrong. They never find anything wrong. There are, no matter what the appliance is, we had a fish tank that would flash in the middle of the night for no reason. And it's really hard to explain, but along with my book is a DVD. And so the book is kind of interactive. So when you get to the part of my book where I'm documenting in the house, in that DVD, you can stop reading the book, set it down, and go see what I'm telling you about. And things like the fan, the fish tank, the lights, the candles.
So it's a fully interactive, immersive experience with your book. You can read about it and
absolutely.
Then look at the clip of what was going on at that time.
Absolutely.
We'll have a link up. We'll have a link up to that again. Go to darknessradio.com and click on the Killer Deals link, and you'll find the book and DVD match up there so that you can see the entire story unfold before you. I know we've got more to share. All of this activity is taking place, going on. When did you say you finally gave into it that it was something paranormal, that this was above and beyond just weird things that happen in houses settling? I still have a very good friend in California, and her husband drove all the way up here to spend a week with us, and she did some EVPs with me, and she was amazing. She'd never done that before, but she actually sounded very professional, and the house was active the minute she walked in the door. The minute she walked in, we were downstairs, and she said, "Oh, Jim's home." And I said, "No, he's not home till tomorrow." And she said, "No, I heard him. He just came in and threw his keys on the table upstairs." And I said, "Yeah, I heard that too, but it's not Jim." And she said, "Well, it has to be." I said, "No, it's the house." And so that was like the first thing that happened the minute she got here. And during her stay, like all kinds of things happened, and we decided to do this EVP. What we got on this was, I have no doubt in my mind there's life after death. I have no doubt in my mind that these are human beings that were speaking to us. And it's all recorded. It's in the DVD. What were they saying? Could you just give us I know it's in the DVD, but I mean, people are going to want to hear that anyway, but what kind of things, right. What kind of messages were coming through?
Sometimes there'd be 4 and 5 people talking at the same time, or she would ask a question. One of the things she asked is, "Are you among strangers?" And you can hear a little girl say yes. And other times there'd be men talking, saying the F word, and then an enormous amount of people begging for help, which just breaks your heart to hear it. It's they sounded so frustrated. It would start out with help me, and then they're screaming help me so loud you'll just jump out of your seat when you hear it. It's amazing, and it's almost as if somebody is repeating what you're saying, as if they're talking to a group of people. And it's exactly what I suspected and what I felt the whole time, is that it doesn't feel like one person's like watching you. It feels like a room full of people are watching you. And during these EVPs, she would ask a question, and then you could hear, sometimes it would sound like there's a man who's repeating what she said, almost like a translator, but it's not a different language. He's just repeating what she said. And then there'd be responses after that. We've got the names of people. There's some guy, it was another EVP that we did with other people, and she said, is there anything we can do to help you? And the man said, I don't need help, I'm a master. And it's very clear. I mean, there's no mistaking what we're hearing. I don't know what the hell that means, but then I have video of I'll never get over this, but one afternoon I just kind of felt compelled to pick up the recorder, and the fan had been going off and on all day, and it wasn't moving at that moment. And I just asked, if you're here and you're trying to get my attention, are you trying to communicate to me through the fan? And I have to tell you, I felt like a complete idiot saying this, talking to this fan. But it started moving, and it started moving really super slow. And it's responding to me. So different things in the house will respond to me. The washing machine will go off and on. And if I ask a question, it'll go off and on, and like it's answering me. And then we now have a very large collection of paranormal equipment, like REM pods and, EMF detectors and SLS camera. And
right, so you really sunk in some time and effort into kind of looking into these claims and see what was going on and see if you could corroborate them.
I also want to help them, because every single time we do recordings, somebody wants help. And I don't know how to help them.
Do you think they're drawn to you and your energy because of what you've gone through, because of the trauma in your life?
You know, now that you've asked me that question, I can tell you the first time I realized there was something going on. There was something else that happened. Those men in the truck that I told you about, what a reliving is it's where you don't have a memory of something, but your body stores memory. And so I can have the physical pain of what happened to me that night without the memory of what the hell it is. And the only reason I can associate it with those men in the truck is that during that, when it's happening, I can hear his voice say, well, you know what he said, why the fuck do they always cry? I was having one of those episodes, and it was actually lasting a lot longer, and it's very painful. I know this sounds crazy.
No, not at all. So when you go through these, it's a form of PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. You're actually, like, in that moment. We've seen that in movies. People shouldn't think it's crazy because they've conveyed that through movies for years when somebody starts to kind of lose themselves into that moment again, and like they're re-experiencing it, they're reliving it. And I think people are more accepting and believable of that idea because we've been so inundated with it with Hollywood for so long.
Right. It's a little more like, and anybody who's been raped knows what this is. After the rape, you want to pull your own skin off. You want to bathe in alcohol. You want, like rubbing alcohol. Your skin, you can't live inside your own skin. And that feeling, I hadn't had that for so long, and it seemed like I was having them more and more here. This particular day, I was in a lot of pain, and it was happening, and I was feeling disgusting, and but I was also feeling the physical, what I think is the physical pain from that night. And we have a lot of guns, and it had occurred to me, like I was like thinking to myself, how much of this can I stand? I can't take this. And the drawer was open. I saw the gun, and it occurred to me, hey, I've always got the out, so I could, and I wasn't going to do it, but I thought for a second, if this doesn't go away, I could shoot myself in the head. And the very second I had that thought, it's so crazy. The very second that thought crossed my mind, it sounded like every kitchen cabinet, every plate, everything in my kitchen fell down. It was the loudest noise. I could hear glass breaking. It shook me right out of this thing that I was in. And it scared the crap out of me, and I thought, my God, I don't know what's just happened, but a moose must have run through the wall, or this is going to be god-awful,
right,
what I'm going to find, because I'm going to walk in and everything we own is now broken and on the floor, and I really visualized every kitchen cabinet coming unscrewed from the wall and being on the ground. This was ear-piercingly loud. You could feel the ground moving. I was sitting on the floor crying, and I could feel the ground moving. When I finally got up, and I didn't hurry because I wasn't looking forward to what I was going to find, and when I finally got up and I went into the kitchen, I must have stood there for like 20 minutes in just awe, because there was nothing out of place. There was nothing wrong. I don't know what made this sound, but there was nothing. Nothing, no reason for it. And then one of the last times I had one of these relivings, I still have them occasionally, but they're really fast. But it was the very last time that I had a reliving. I took my dog outside to go walk in the snow and be, hopefully the cold will help snap me out of it. And I heard a woman talking to me. I know I'm not crazy. I filmed what I saw as it started to dissipate, but I don't know how to explain, out of nowhere, a 8-foot-tall steam came up from the ground, and it wasn't shaped like a lady, but it was a lady was talking. And I filmed it leaving, so that's also on the DVD. There's no steam anyplace else. There's nothing there. When it's really cold, if you have like a lake or something, there'll be steam. But there's nothing there, and this was like a cloud, just coming up out of the ground and then floating away. And it actually starts to move down and then comes back up and then kind of like it's walking away. And that's what I got on camera. But I don't know what that was.
Do you have any idea why you are being picked, why things are coming to you and you're the one that's getting all of this attention?
I don't have any proof of it. I have an idea, but I don't have any proof.
What is your idea? Please, I'd love some insight on that.
It's just my theory, and I can't prove this. We've tried to do history of this house, and this is an unincorporated town, and I can't find any history on this town. Kind of like what happens here stays here. there's nothing. And I think this is what I've heard about small towns that are unincorporated, which means they didn't use the police force. They didn't. They were their own government. They were their own, marshal or whatever. They handled their own business, and they didn't involve the nearby cities. In those places, there were a lot of brothels and a lot of mistreated women. And that's who I think I saw outside. I know, it sounds weird, but that woman that was talking, and I never got her voice on tape, but that white mist, I can't explain it. I started crying, and I can't, other than my current husband, I've never felt so loved in my life. Like, so understood. And so she, I think, led a kind of life that I did. I think she was forced to do a lot of things she didn't want to do.
Here's an idea, just something to kind of throw out to you. Could it be, and I know this is going to sound strange at first, but could it be that what you're experiencing, who this woman is you? A past incarnation, a past version of who you are. And that maybe that's why, if it shared these similar lifestyles, it shared this similar connection, maybe that's why, because it's you.
I got to tell you, after living here, I think anything is possible, so I don't know.
Yeah, I would bet.
It could be. And I don't know who these other people are. But there's children, there's men. My husband saw a little girl downstairs. I've seen people, but not in the house. But I've seen them on the property, and they're very strange. They look like regular people. They don't look like a ghost. They're walking around, but they're walking weird, and they're on private property, and they should be running away once they realize I see them. So it's possible that that's what that is. I don't know. But my husband saw a little girl in the house downstairs for a split second, and we've recorded 5 or 6 different men, 2 or 3 different women, and little kids. So I don't know why. I don't know if they live here or if they always lived here.
Well, what do they tell you when you get all this? When you get all this EVP and you ask these questions, are they ever forthcoming?
Not really. Not really. No. A lot of them are just really unclear, and some of them are just bizarre, and they don't make sense. Nobody's specifically answering much. Every now and then there's a sentence that's in response to a question. Are you keeping the homeowner up at night? Some guy said, I could care less. But nobody really answers anything. Why are you here? Just a lot of help me, and it's very rare that I get a name. I even am coming up with a theory that maybe when you pass away, you don't know what your name is for a while.
Very well could be, right, yeah.
I had amnesia once, and for like 5 minutes, and the paramedics asked my name, and I couldn't say what it was. So I don't know, maybe when you pass away, that's traumatic. Maybe you don't. I don't know, it's strange, because you'd think they would want to tell me their name. But I have a few names, but for the amount of voices I've recorded, it doesn't match up. It doesn't. And I just, mostly every time I do one of these recordings, I have more questions than answers.
Well, what do you make of what's going on? I mean, you've dealt with drugs, you've dealt with a lot of darkness in your own life, and you're having all these experiences. Could this just be after effects, flashbacks, things like that?
Well, that's a good one. No, because other people.
Well, I know our our listeners are asking that in their mind now. That's why I'm just curious what your thoughts are on something like that.
In the back of my book are testimonies from other people that wrote in their own words what their experiences were here. Because I would imagine that, when you have post-traumatic stress, a lot of people are treated like they're crazy. And, I would kind of expect people to do that. That's how I've been treated my whole life. I'm not crazy. And people that have PTSD or CPTSD, they're not crazy. They're just suffering from a memory that doesn't want to go away. Interestingly enough, mine has gone away. I don't have those anymore. So whatever
Do you think it's
happens,
the more you're enveloping yourself into the paranormal, the more you're accepting of it, the more that's releasing?
I think so. I do. I think so. I think it's also given me something else to focus on. And I don't know. I definitely would like to say that this is not like it is in the movies at all. It's not, the walls don't bleed. It's not a theatrical thing. I've had people come over and say, well, nothing happened to me while I was there. Well, you were here for a day and a half, and it's not a circus house. It's not going to do it on cue. Nothing, things happen when they happen. The entire house works when it damn well feels like it, too. If you want to wash clothes and the washer doesn't work, you have to wait. If the dishwasher doesn't work, you wait. Christmas dinner and the oven stops working, we don't have control over it. The temperature in the house, we don't have control over it. People get really mad when they visit here because they're cold, and I can't help you. The thermostat says 75. What would you like us to do? You have to put on a sweater. Step out of the cold spot you're in. But a lot of people have had experiences here, and even people that were very cynical and have come back have had experiences, and are willing to write stuff in the back of book 2 because they're, they want people to know that this is real. But it's not the horrifying thing on television. It's not evil. It's not demons. Nothing bad has ever happened to anybody here. The first year I was here, this was the most terrifying thing to me. Because I really thought somebody was hiding in the house. They had a key and they were coming in and making all this noise and moving things around, and that was really scary. But and it's still scary sometimes because it's shocking. It's 3:00 in the morning and it sounds like a door is slammed. It's scary because you think it's a person. But
do you like having this kind of ability and access to this other realm, or is it tiresome?
I think that it's a little more special to me now. Don't get upset. My daughter is here listening, and I don't want her to get upset. This is more important to me right now because 2 years ago, I got up to use the bathroom, and I had a heart attack. And then I came back to the house once they released me, and I had a massive heart attack within 6 hours of being back in the house. I do not believe that the house had anything to do with this. But I've been very ill ever since, and I'm so close to being dead that it's important to me that I'm going to be able to communicate with my daughter and my husband when I'm gone. Because I don't think I'm really going to be here too much longer, to be honest. I mean, things are constantly going wrong, and there's always some new diagnosis of, something. So,
and do they know where these maladies are springing up from? Have you thought of grounding yourself, shutting this part of you down so that maybe these spirits are attracted to you because you are a light, you are a beacon, and they're draining you. They're causing these maladies.
I guess it's possible, but
it's a theory. I mean, it's something, especially if modern medicine can't figure out what's going on and why. It may be that you need to learn to shut that aspect down of you. It may be what you need to be able to rebound, because it sounds like since you opened up and kind of gave back what had happened to you, and that started to ease your relivings, but you started taking on these energies from these other beings, these messages, these connections, that it's begun taking its toll physically. And I've spoken to mediums who've dealt with this, and it's taken them breaking it down and saying no more, this is enough, and learning to shut that off. And I might suggest there's a great book called The Gift by Echo Bodine that talks about how to balance these things. And, I can certainly off air try to put you in touch with a few practitioners I know that may be proficient at helping you do that, because, certainly I'd like for this to stop, as I'm sure your family would, and give you another lease on life and give you a chance, instead of just kind of, reserved to the fact that this seems to be your fate, because I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I find it hard to believe that you've gone this far and seen and done so much that this would be the reason, and that this would be the way that you're expected to go. So with your permission, off air, I'd be happy to give you information and see if we can't get you some help. Sure.
I can see that it's totally possible, but we do have, some, like the heart attacks, they came from a medication they weren't supposed to put me on.
Right.
And they're known to give women a heart attack, and nobody caught that. And some of the other illnesses, they shouldn't have given me a flu shot after a heart attack.
But here's the thing to remember, June, not trying to be over cheerleadery on you. You've survived and lived through a lot of things. And
true.
You survived taking a drug that was giving women heart attacks, and you survived it not once, but twice. Then you survived the flu shot, which you shouldn't have had after a heart attack. So I don't know that your song is quite over yet. I don't know that we've reached the end of the CD. So okay. Let's see what we can do to find that deal. And the main thing is you hear it is setting the intention, and if you start to buy into this is the end, beautiful friend, the end, that might bring that knocking on your door, and let's see if there's another way,
That's true.
And let's see if there's another way, because you're close to your daughter and your husband, and that's not where you want to be right now. You've still got a place to be, and I really think it's important for you to remember that you've already survived all of what should have killed you or would have killed anyone else. So I wouldn't give in so quickly if I were you at this point. I think there's a lesson to be learned, and maybe that's what your journey is for. You said that you weren't quite sure to what end this all might be, and maybe it is to show people the true power that we have when we let it happen and start to realize the gifts that we've been given. And though you've suffered some of these maladies and other items, you're still with us, June, and that's a lot.
See, and this may be that divine intervention. Here it comes again.
There you go. Well, we'll do what we can for you off air and see if we can't find a way to help you. And
all right, thank you.
And do what we can with people that we're connected with in this field. Again, there's no knowing for certain how it all goes down, but sometimes all it takes is that kick in the ass, right? That one more push to give you the idea that maybe this isn't it. Maybe there is more to be done. So we hope there is, and I look forward to talking to you a year from now when things have turned that corner and you're entering the Winter Olympics or something fun, and we'll find out what's going on with you then.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
June Matthews, The Reliving a True Story. It's available not only with a book, but a DVD, so you can read it and see it for yourself. We have a link up to that at darknessradio.com, and then click on that Killer Deals link to find all of the books from all the guests that you hear featured on our show. And like with June, don't be defined by the things that can break us. Be defined by the way you brush yourself off and step back into the ring and one more swing. That's where we really shine. That's where we, as humans, can show what we are truly capable of. And there is magic all around us at all times, folks. It's how you let it in, and do you tap it or do you let it go by? That's going to change how your life is led. I hope you have a great weekend, a safe weekend filled with love and laughter. And please, remember to call a friend today. Reach out to somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, because we're reminded life is precious. And we never know when that time is going to come. So make sure that you've made the best of the life that you have. We'll talk to you again right here on the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.